Hello everybody, this is Varsha Kulkarni from Darwin Academy. Today I'm here to discuss the introductory topic for grade 9, that is the fundamental unit of life. Before I get started with any important details about the introductory session, let me ask you a quick question. First and foremost, the wall that you can see around you, if you're seated within a room, how is that built? What are the basic units that make up a wall? Yes, you guessed it right. These are the bricks. Just like the bricks make up any wall, there are fundamental units that make up any living organism. With that being said, let me introduce you to the objectives that we are going to look at in today's session. First, we would be looking at the discovery of the fundamental unit of life. Then we will be studying the definition of the cell. Moving on, we will be looking at the concept of division of labor, followed by the components of a cell. Alright, so going back to the analogy of a wall being made up of fundamental units called bricks, even we as living organisms are being made up of small, tiny little structures which are very basic to our existence, and these are called as the cells. So, how do I define a cell? Cell is defined as a structural and functional unit of life. If you take up a single cell organism like an amoeba has only one cell. If you take up a multicellular organism like the human being, we are made up of millions of such tiny cells. If I take up an example of a flowering plant, even the flowering plant is a multicellular organism. That means it has many cells. Okay. So, with this slight little introduction, let's start with the discovery of the fundamental unit of life. See, way back in 1665, a scientist by name Robert Hooke placed a small little section of a tree bark, which he called as cork, under his microscope. His microscope was very simple. It was not as advanced as we see of today. Alright. So, under that rudimentary microscope or the primitive microscope, he placed this thin layer of cork and studied it. What did he see? He saw that the cork was made up of something or some structures that resembled a honeycomb. Since these were like small little rooms, he called them as cells. Cells in Latin means little rooms. Okay, let me repeat. Whatever we know of cells in today's context, we all owe it to the first person who observed the cells under the microscope, and he was instrumental in coining the term cells. Cell in Latin means small room. How did the cell get its name? When Robert Hooke studied a thin section of plant bark, which he called them as cork, under his microscope that he had developed, he observed something that resembled compact arrangement of a honeycomb. I hope most of you here would have seen or honeycomb actually, or might have had a look at its image, isn't it, or picture. So he observed cells of which were tightly packed, and since they appeared like little rooms, he called them in Latin as cells. That is how the cells got their name. This was way back in 1665. Then exactly 9 years after, there was a scientist called as Antony von Leeuwenhoek. He took a small drop of pond water and he placed it on the slide and studied it under slightly improved type of microscope that he had. What did he observe? He saw that there were small little moving objects in the slide. So, from that, he concluded that the cells need not always be stationary and compactly arranged. They can also be moving around and tiny little particles like structure. Okay. So, next, moving on to the next discovery, which was a major discovery, like in 1831, it was Robert Brown who discovered the nucleus. You know that nucleus is called as the brain of the cell. In 1839, there was a scientist called Kulkarni who coined the term protoplasm. But it was the discovery or the theory put out by Schwann and Schleiden that was the famous theory which was called as the cell theory. They said that all plants and all animals were made up of cells and that cells were the basic units of life. Alright, so this was an important theory that was proposed by Schleiden and Schwann. Okay, and then it was Varkau who said that the cells that we have already originated from pre-existing cells. That means the cells which were already present. Let me simplify that for you. Varkau said that the cells that we have now have originated from the pre-existing cells. So, and also, I would like to tell you that it was the German engineer called Ernst Ruska who actually invented the electron microscope in the year 1940. You know the importance of electron microscope in the study of cell and its components. If you don't know about it, we are going to study more about cell, its parts, and each and every time I would be stressing on where we would be using electron microscope going further. Alright, or probably the importance of electron microscope in biology. So with this, I think we have discussed about the discovery of the fundamental unit of life. See, there were so many scientists, so many biologists, most of them from Germany, all right, most of them from Europe, who studied the cell individually, separately, and they have contributed a lot to our understanding of the cell that we know of today. That being said, we have already defined the cell. The cell, I would like to reiterate, is defined as a structural and functional unit of life. All right. Then I have a question. Here, is my body made up of same type of cells? For example, am I made up of the same type of cell from my head to the toe? That is the question. The answer to that is no. Though my body is made up of millions of cells, they all vary in their size, shape, structure, and function. Why should that be so? It is because each cell would have a different job. Based on the job that they perform, their structure and the way they appear would be different. Here, I have drawn a few examples of different types of cells that we may see or come across within a living or within a human body. I have drawn a smooth muscle cell. Look at its structure. These are very, very tiny. The diagram that I have drawn here has been magnified many times. Okay? The smooth muscle cell is here. I have drawn a nerve cell, a sperm, an ovum, and a blood cell. Look how different they appear. It is because each one of them have their own job to perform. Like for example, the nerve cells are in our brain. Their job is to mainly carry information in the form of electric impulse from one part of the body or from one part to the other. Whereas the role of smooth muscle cells might be to contract and relax. See how different their functions are. Based on that function, that is based on the job that they perform, they have different structure. This is called as division of labor. For example, at your own home, you might see that each one of you has taken up a different work to be more efficient. For example, you might have volunteered to help your parents clean up your room every now and then, and your mother would be busy cooking or preparing things so that all of you in the family are nourished well. Likewise, your father would be earning so that he brings the money into the home so that the nutrition and other basic necessities of your life are being taken care of. Just like each one of you have taken up an individual job, there is division of labor that is seen even in your house, isn't it? Just like that, within the living organism, there is division of labor seen amongst the cells also. Not only amongst the cell, but within a simple cell. If I take up a simple animal cell, I would see a nucleus, I would see lot of vacuoles, I might be seeing mitochondria, I might be also seeing lysozymes, right? Then there is endoplasmic reticulum, which is a thread-like structure. There are smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulum. Then there might be Golgi apparatus or the Golgi complex. Here within a cell, each different part which I have drawn here has its own role to perform. The cell membrane which covers the cell actually protects the cell and keeps all the ingredients of the cell or the components of cell within itself. Okay? And the mitochondria is responsible to produce energy, whereas the nucleus controls the activity of the entire cell, right? And lysosomes are called as suicide bags because they can destroy the cell if the cell is not required. Okay, then the Golgi apparatus are involved in packing of materials, whereas the endoplasmic reticulum is involved in the synthesis of proteins and lipids. We will look at all different parts of a cell one by one in our later classes, but here the point that I would like to make is each and every part of a cell has its own role to play. You can see division of labor within the cell and also within the organism. That is the idea that I would like to drive home with these 2 points. Also, these small little organs which are very tiny and that which are present within the cell are called as cell organelles. Alright, so from now on, if I say cell organelles, you should know that these are present within the cell and they are tiny little parts of cell which have their own job to perform. Okay, I think we will be discussing or taking up the component or each component of a cell in the upcoming videos. But before that, I would like to tell you that a cell is made up of, or a cell is a structural and functional unit of life. We have discussed about the discovery of the cell, starting from Robert Hooke, who studied the cell under his rudimentary microscope and coined the term cell, that in Latin means little rooms. They are followed by Anthony von Leeuwenhoek, who observed a drop of pond water and understood that cells need not always be compact, they can be moving around or floating around as well. Then Robert Brown in 1831 discovered the nucleus. In 1839, Kulkarni coined the term protoplasm, and the cell theory which says that the plants and animals are made up of cells and that cells are the functional units of life and basic units of life was proposed by Schwann and Schlegel, followed by the last discovery which you should be knowing according to your syllabus is the theory of or the theory that was proposed by Varsha, who said that the cells that we know of today have come from the pre-existing cells. I have also added one little point here that the discovery or the, sorry, it is not the discovery, it is the invention of electron microscope or dates back to 1940 and it is credited to Ernst. So with this I'll be concluding today's video. Thank you.